So those are the main things. You'll see here that chicory, they also they make the males sterile so that they can't hybridize, because that's one of the problems. They can also ensure that those plants can't produce seeds. Okay? The problem with producing seeds is that then you can cross them with the wild population, and that produces problems. The other side of that coin is that if you allow them to not be sterile, then someone can buy your very expensive genetically engineered seeds, grow the crops, keep some seeds, and then plant them again. And now they don't have to come to you for more seeds. Okay, so if you make them sterile, then instead of a farmer like you used to grow your corn, keep some of it dry and plant it next year, all of your corn is sterile. And so what you have to do is now go back to the company and buy their seeds again. Okay, and so now you're beholden to that company to buy your seeds. Our squash, our tomato, our potatoes, our soybeans, our sugar beets, all of these things have been genetically engineered, mostly for those particular reasons, but there are a few others. Okay. There are some that, like the flax is interesting. They are being genetically engineered to be able to grow in soils that have basically been ruined by previous application of pesticides and herbicides. So the ground is so toxic that the plants wouldn't grow there. But these plants are now resistant, and so they can grow in that spoiled ground. There are other plants that are new that can actually clean up a mess, which is kind of nice. So they can be planted in areas where the soil has become too salty, has become too toxic, and they actually work, or that's what they say, work to remove the toxins that are in the soil. So all of these things are being done. The tomato, they made the tomato so that it would be less bruisable, so that when you get it in the grocery store, it's still pretty. Then other tomatoes are genetically engineered so that they ripen even though you pull them off the vine. So now they look ripe and orange and beautiful, but they may not taste so good. So the problem with some of these things are what is being put in there and to whose advantage. Okay, so yeah, it's great for the seller of the tomatoes to have tomatoes that convince you that they are ripe and good. Once you've bought them, then you figure out that they don't taste so good. Okay, so a little history of where this all started, what were the first attempts, and where are we? So this is off of Google. Okay, so this is stuff that I found on Google, and then I went and investigated some of these further for myself to separate the truth from the non-truth. So this is true. The first thing was a tomato called the Flavor Saver, and it was resistant to rotting, so it could be kept on the shelf longer and didn't get bruised. And so it was released onto the market as early as 1994. There was no label on it saying it had been genetically engineered. It was just out there. Okay. To this day, has anyone ever seen a label on food that says this food was genetically engineered? No. It's not required in the U.S., and you better believe that they're not going to offer that information if they don't have to. Okay, so none of our genetically engineered food is labeled as such. So you can pick up one tomato and another tomato, and you won't know which one has been genetically engineered and which one is a natural tomato with the natural genetics. Between 1997 and 1999, the ingredients suddenly appeared in 2/3 of our all-processed U.S. foods. And that number has not gone down. Okay? So these genetically engineered foods are there, they're not labeled, they're mixed in with other stuff, and so there's not really any way of knowing what exactly you are eating. In Europe, they are required to label which foods are genetically engineered. So the only way to get something that is not is to look for the label that says that it is not. And there's very few food items that actually state that on them. By 2006, this is 4 years ago, 89% of our soybeans, cotton, maize, all of these were genetically engineered. So we're talking big